just so
Hi.
we know.
Welcome to
Hey, everybody.
Gosh, I didn't even look it up. What are we? Week 11? I think we're week 11. Which is another fun, crazy writer chicks live event that's, already fallen apart at the seams and we haven't even started.
Emphasis on the word crazy.
Background.
Crazy tonight.
Very special secret guest can't get about food. The healing and hurting effects of and things like that.
Me?
We're not
just you.
About any advice or guidance or direction to you guys.
We can't hear you, Nick. All of your words are jumbling together.
It sounds like you're underwater.
And you froze.
It was working, though, up until we went live.
It was.
Becca.
Go for it, Becca.
Go for
Take
it.
it.
Well, I feel bad because we're missing 2 people. So anyway, yes, what Nikki was saying that we couldn't really hear is that that this is not advice and we are not in any way professionals, and we are just sharing our personal experiences and things that have helped us or hurt us, and not trying to tell anybody else what to do. So if you go home and eat tons of walnuts because we said it's good and then you get sick, it is not our fault.
Not our fault.
That was pretty much a direct quote, right?
Don't get.
Don't blame us.
Talk to your physician.
Don't blame us.
So
okay.
So yeah. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by trying to get Tanya on. She's clicking it and it's not working.
Becca, why don't you have her email me from that email address that you forwarded her my email. She's got my email address. Have her email me directly and I'll so I can deal with that while you talk, since a delay that's beyond usable.
Gotcha. Okay. So how do we want to start? Go ahead, Winter. You have some
different. We have Nikki who is on a farm, so they have all sorts of different unique eating, and they eat from the stuff that are on. Then you have particular taking care of. I'm sorry, I'm pouring water in his shoe right now just to get my attention.
Put him on your lap. Put him on your lap.
I think
we are
a moment.
Running start today.
It's totally a crazy night. So
anyone else want to sign in and talk? Because we can't.
Tanya is trying to. She's
I love what you had to say
about me.
Phone. I don't even know if you can hear me. That was so
I can hear
sweet
you right
that
now.
I eat the food off my arm, but I still can't figure out how to grow Doritos. So
Doritos? Oh, got it. It was a joke. Sorry. Took me a second to get that one.
But the goal is to eat off my farm. It's really just a bunch of animals that cost me a lot of money because I think they're too cute.
And then you have Becca, who is on Twitter, the pigskin.
Not Twitter.
Weren't you?
But yes, cutting a pigskin.
Oh,
yeah, see, I actually do
know how to
eat the
use
farm
Twitter.
Animals.
Instagram?
Yeah, it was Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, I eat animals from my own.
Yeah. we eat plants from our...
I'm over here and I'm vegan, so...
Yeah. So you need a yard like ours so you could grow your own stuff. Like ours. Like I have like a quarter of an acre. but it's enough for some ducks and pineapples and mangoes.
Okay, I have 6 acres. She grows more food than me, so don't laugh about your quarter acre. You make a lot of food from that land. I got avocados, oranges, and pineapples are the only things that I can't kill around here. Although I'm taking a true stab at tomatoes again this year. So, ooh, I hear she's coming.
Oh, yay. Good. So, there she is.
Mate.
Hey.
Hi, Tanya.
Hey.
We're having a highly distracted and distractible night with all kinds of insanity. So
I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's my life. Totally my life. It's fine.
Winter just stopped her nephew from pouring water in his shoe to get her attention, and that's how it is.
I mean, that's kids.
Yeah, both shoes.
And all more.
Switch
He's
shoes. What
determined.
is it?
He switched shoes? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
So,
I announced it, and then he was like, "Oh, do the other one."
Talk about food. So, where do we want to start with? You want to start with meat?
Sorry.
Let's start by talking about meat?
Or should we start by specific
stories? Oh, that's true. We could each tell a little bit about our food thing and then discuss. That sounds good. We could have planned this out ahead of time, but
gosh, Rebecca,
nothing goes as planned anyway, so what's the point?
Truth.
And actually, Winter was about to start, and then she got distracted. So who wants to go first?
She's also not looking at us again.
Yeah. She's suddenly babysitting, just like spur of the moment, so. I'll start. How about that? So I used to eat completely normally. I do have something of a sugar addiction. I know that. And I eat sugar. Like, I'm not trying to get rid of that sugar addiction. I'm just trying to control it, which is exactly what an addict would say. And self-aware. Okay, I'm self-aware. And a few years ago, I got very, very sick. Like, I had to go to the hospital and get IV fluids, and I had a very bad intestinal infection that came from possibly several different things, and I spent like a year trying to figure out what my problem was. Long story short, I basically started following a Crohn's disease diet, and now I don't follow that anymore because I've healed enough that I don't feel like I have to anymore.
Moving
But I still
more
have to
than
be
Parker
careful.
does, and Parker's Taylor's sister.
Sorry if you were hearing my child. Vanessa.
Mine will be down
she
soon.
closed the door.
I'm just gonna start muting you all.
Well, I tried, and then I couldn't hear Becca, and I was like, darn it.
Muted us instead.
It's not the first interruption we've had. It definitely won't be the last.
No, mine will be down soon. So basically, my thing was I could not eat vegetables, especially not raw vegetables. And most fruits are pretty good, but I have to be careful with certain ones. And if I cook things, it's usually okay, but still too much is too much. I also have to be careful about eating too much meat. I do great with grains, all the things that they tell you should stop eating, like wheat and stuff, no problem. So that's kind of my thing, like the opposite of what conventional wisdom, which I think is what probably my problem was, because I thought to be healthier, I was trying to eat all the things that were literally killing me. So that was great. Anyway, I was glad I found out about the Crohn's disease thing, because even though I don't think I actually have that, the diet works. So. Okay, someone has a completely different thing from me, so go. Winter, do you have a second, you think?
Yeah, I could go. For me, I am actually now, but it took me years to get here. When I was in my teen, nauseous of at restaurants and such, and ignored it for years because the quarter pounder was my world. And then I just kept getting nauseous. That was not working for me. So no matter where I ate burger from, I got sick. So I started taking those out of my diet. And then I only ate chicken. And after a while, that got annoying. And then for reasons not to, and then I found them. So then I slowly worked my way into being vegan. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Becca.
Can I tell a story about you?
Sure. Oh, about me.
When she was eating chicken, and then she started working at this like little preserve farm place where they you go in and an ag museum, and they had chickens, and she was like, I can't eat chickens anymore. They have faces.
For real.
And I don't know if that was the very end of the chicken,
was true.
But like pretty much.
They looked at me, and I couldn't do it. So that, and before that, tempted being, I think, 2 other times. So by that time, I finally went full in vegetarian, and that lasted 5 years. And then I slowly my way into being vegan, and now I'm vegan now for over 2 years. And I think I started going into vegan, and it was kind of easy for me to be vegetarian. I never liked milk. I never liked egg. Just started to taper off. I just didn't enjoy it. Most other people did, and I truly love fruits and vegetables, and so I just started being happy with those. But on top of these, made my stomach tingle, and sometimes get nauseous with milk. So I just started taking anything away that came from an animal and started personally better. I still do honey though. Don't hate me, ultra vegans. I'm saying.
I like honey.
Do you want me to go next?
Nikki. Sure, Tanya.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Tanya.
Thanks
for joining us tonight.
I was like, maybe we should ask Tanya before we start asking her to share.
We started off in.
At this point, I've been in. Yeah, it's one of the. I'm an open book, so. So I first started having issues. I have a whole slew of allergies, and the first time when I got to college, I realized like when I ate apples that were raw, my mouth would get itchy, my ears would get itchy, but I wasn't allergic to apples that I knew of. And then that gradually went into apples and bananas, and then it filtered into cucumbers, and it was eventually anything that was a fruit or vegetable and hadn't been processed, I had a reaction to. So I finally went and I had a new set of allergy testing done. And the allergist, at this point I was still in college, and he was like, yeah, you're allergic to everything. I was like, awesome. So he said the best thing to do is to start an elimination diet. He goes, but you're going to have to leave one thing in because otherwise you'll have no food. The test that on his, I was allergic to wheat, soy, rice, corn, potatoes, all legumes, all melons, all squashes, shellfish, just all sorts of stuff. So for that, I left corn in my diet, took the rest out. We gradually started to add things, and I got to like the second or third and started having reactions again. And he's like, well, if you can tolerate it, just leave it in your diet. And I was like, that's what I was doing at first. Thanks. So I basically went back to just eating the way that I was. I always avoided shellfish. Other than that, I just pretty much had anything. I avoided almonds because that was one of the first ones that popped up for me. So in the last year or so, year and a half, I started having all sorts of symptoms, you know, and I could eat a meal one day and the next day it bothered me. Exactly the same, no difference. So I was retested for my environmental allergies. And then over the last few months, I've had doctors who have sent for blood work to confirm allergies. So where I stand right now is my list of food allergies is at 20. And the good thing is I'm so severely allergic to different pollens and environmentals that a lot of my allergies are cross reactions. You know, it's called oral allergy syndrome. So people who are really allergic to birch, any fruits or vegetables that are similar, the body can't tell the difference. So you still have a reaction. So I've been walking through the process of trying to figure out what I can eat and quantity wise and all of that. But it's still a hot mess. I am being on the road to being tested potentially for celiac. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, I think my big issue is I found out I cannot have folic acid. So there goes any of your enriched or fortified products. And because of that, my body can't detox everyday chemicals and toxins very well. So I think surely because my body can't effectively get rid of the histamine and I have so many environmental allergies, basically enough, that my body just gets behind. So I end up having various symptoms and what have you. So complicated.
No fun.
No.
I feel like we're in the same boat on so many things. Why'd you hear about all of my allergies? Because it's pretty much the same story. Although that's not where my food issues started. Winter, did you want to ask Tanya a question before I share?
My question was, does it make a difference if something's organic or not, or is it just a vegetable, or does it have anything to do with the way it's grown?
It's the oral allergy syndrome, it's the actual proteins. So a lot of times people with oral allergy syndrome, if it's cooked or sometimes steamed, but especially if it's cooked or, you know, transferred in some way, then the body can tell the difference because it changes it just enough. So, you know, like I said, for a while, I was like, oh, I can just steam vegetables and then it's okay. But it just gradually got worse and worse. So, yeah. And then, Nikki, you just mentioned, you know, that's not really where it started. I do also have an eating disorder. So that's been fun, you know, trying to navigate. I'm like, for once in my life, I just want to be able to eat without thinking about it. Like, why can I not do this? So, yeah, it's definitely a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Sweet.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I'm living the food allergy world. Not food allergy world. I'm living the environmental allergy world, and I'm just recently starting to have food allergies pop. However, my food problems were way, way long before that. I mean, I grew up the fat kid, so food was always a huge thing. A huge part of my life and everything. And I was struggling with infertility, and it adjusted my diet big time for that. I even had gastric sleeve surgery to lose weight to adjust everything because I have PCOS, so it was causing hormonal issues. But the problem is when you do something like that, the diet they put you on is high protein, very, very low carb, obviously low veg and so forth. Even low dietitian who had me on massive amounts of dairy and eat in order to ensure I get all this protein in. I was using whey protein supplements, and I was making myself progressively sicker and sicker and sicker over the course of a year. And it was because I was having issues with the dairy, and I was still having issues with gluten that I didn't even realize I was having, because I had eliminated and things like that when I was on the balance things, and I even did nut cycling for hormones, some of this stuff. But I was making myself sick, and I didn't know myself sick, which was the crazy part. And so I've always had allergy issues. I did not understand the differences between tolerances and allergies, because multiple times I would be tested for allergies and celiac and everything, and they'd be like, "No, you're fine. No, you're fine. You are highly allergic to everything outside." And any type of dust in your house, it could kill you. But no, you could eat whatever you want. And so I couldn't understand, because I was an itchy mouth eater. Still am to this day. And that was when some of it had started early on. And it was funny because my mother-in-law has the same issue, but she is allergic to pesticides. So it's very different for her. She can eat organic without pesticides and will not have reactions, but she's so allergic, if she touches a potato, she will literally swell up everywhere. So I spent about a year of my life living with hives in my face swelling and like my lips, but never the inside of my mouth. It was like really weird stuff. In fact, it all started happening again a couple months ago. I think we were at the park. Weird. I don't know. We've got it somewhere. But yeah, so now there's certain things that I know I can eat and I can't eat, because I even either have an intolerance or I've got an allergy from it now. My latest were interesting because they've never popped before, but I've been told by my allergist it will just, like you, Tanya, get progressively worse as the years go on. And I can make decisions to eat poorly and I will be sick. I mean, I'm not allergic enough that it will kill me, which is terrible, because it's very hard to stay motivated to not make bad decisions. I'm like, well, I'll be home for the next day or two. It'll be fine. But it's not fine. And then just this year, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which a lot of that is controlled by diet. So if I can stay clean and stay off the foods that do make me sick, then just generally overall, I feel better. But it took me, I mean, I'm 39 years old, and it literally took me to probably the last year and a half to figure out what foods I could eat and what I couldn't. Insane.
Can I pop in real quick?
Of course, I'm done. I've talked enough.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Vanessa, what's up? Hold on. Okay, she walked away. I didn't hear what she needed. So one of the things, because I've had so many allergies for so long, one of the things that I was looking into is mast cell activation.
Why won't you listen to me?
Excuse me. Please don't be rude.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to ask you how to spell schedule and you're not responding.
Schedule?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
Important.
I'll put it on my phone. Yes. I'll put it on my phone and you can copy it and then come back. Sorry, bear with me. Just a moment.
There are much worse
Here,
things
sweetie.
you could have asked to have you spell.
That's true. I was not thinking schedule was the question.
Top one, love. Okay. And then bring my phone back, please. So I started looking into mast cell activation, and in seeing all of that, my symptoms don't match because I don't have a sudden increase and then drop in symptoms. But I learned that there are so many different foods that are high histamine. And for someone like myself, I mean, I was at 56 local environmental allergens when I was tested last time. So I'm like, it all adds up. I'm like, my body just can't keep up with all the histamine. So I first switched to a lower histamine diet, which again was organic, as fresh as possible on everything, nothing processed. I started ordering my meat from a local farm where it was flash frozen because refrigeration increases histamine. So I learned all of these different things to try to help with some of the symptoms. And it's like now I'm kind of at the beginning. I know that I can't have, like I said, the folic acid, and we're trying to figure out if celiac is what's making up the rest of my symptoms or some sort of other autoimmune issue.
Yeah. It's confusing because some of the symptoms overlap so much. I mean, I didn't even realize there's things that you have intolerances to and you'll have a reaction 2 or 3 days later from something you ate 2 or 3 days ago.
Yes.
It's very different than actual allergies. So it's extremely difficult to pinpoint, which is why I also did a lot of elimination diets, just trying to figure it out, right? And then, of course, trying to figure it out also changed the way I was sourcing my food a little bit, like what Winter was saying this morning. I mean, granted, I'll still open a bag of Doritos or go out to a restaurant or something I shouldn't, but where we get our food, I try to do it a lot differently than before. And I was kidding, but I mean, someday maybe I'll be able to grow things the right way, like Becca, maybe, and not split.
Well, I mean, I found
it's hard.
I'm in an apartment. It is. I'm in an apartment and I bought it's almost like a pocket chart for anyone who's familiar with education. But it has all of these pockets, and I went ahead and planted a bunch of herbs in there. So that way I can start getting some of that. But yeah, it's difficult.
I think something to take home for people who are watching would be if you have weird symptoms or if anybody in your family, kids, anything odd, because we think of allergies as like sneezing or hives or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could also be like if your kid starts acting really different for some reason or for no apparent reason, to have checked.
Or you do.
Yeah, yes. Suddenly you just feel bad all the time, right? You feel bad. And maybe it's not an allergy. Maybe it's some kind of intolerance or something that you can't handle. And maybe
sorry, go ahead.
Tested. Well, I'm saying like, getting tested is certainly something that you should do. But even if it comes back clean, that doesn't mean that you can just eat whatever you want. Food could still be affecting you even if it's not technically an allergy.
So well, and I've also found out that for me, a lot of it is fatigue and joint pain, and I have no signs of arthritis in my blood work. They're like, there's no arthritis there. And I'm like, okay, but when I get to the top of the stairs, I feel like I've done 4 flights. Like this can't be, the same. So a lot of it too comes back to over a period of time, continuing not to listen to your body, the symptoms just start to mount on one another.
I was honestly tested numerous times for arthritis, and I just tested positive for RA, and I was in the middle of a huge flare up and even then my results were very minimal. It was a diagnosis.
Fine, I guess I won't have a schedule to do everything.
The diagnosis was a combination of symptoms and then blood work too. And I like I said, I did numerous times and just they never were able to say for sure that was it. So I think you're right. Like what Tanya was saying, sometimes it's just listening to your body, like what Winter had to do in order to figure out what worked for her and what didn't, and what Becca did for a year. Like you got to figure it out on your own. I don't think there's a doctor out there who can tell you exactly what you need to do in order to fix it. I'm on such high dose allergy stuff right now, and allergy drops and shots and everything else. And it's literally just keeping the hives at bay. Like this is the best it can do for me. So it's total life change sometimes in order to actually feel better.
Mm-hmm. But what's you're allergic to the thing you like the most? Like I really resisted it for a long time.
Yeah. I can relate.
Yeah, I have nuts. I really like nuts, and I really don't like meat. Like I never crave meat. I might crave seafood sometimes, but never meat of any kind. But if I eat nuts, like I had some this morning, it was the first time in probably a couple years. And I was like, you know what? It really won't hurt me to eat them one time. Like I'm fine. As long as I don't eat them again for a long time, I should be fine.
And I think, Becca, we were talking about this even with your son, like gluten, eat it once a day, a small amount, I'm okay. When I eliminate it completely and I accidentally get glutened, or I'd get like accidentally buttered, and I'd order a meal with none of it, and then I would leave it later. This can be when eliminated, like when you're doing one of those elimination diets, the reactions you have are so much more severe. Like that's how I could tell what my problems were. But if I have a little of something, I'm okay. I don't feel my best, but I'm not dying.
Yeah.
But that's just how my body reacts to it. And that's just gluten. I mean, dairy's a totally different story. If that stuff touches my tongue up, I'm like, don't come find me for the next 48 hours. I'm miserable. But I also have a daughter whose sugar makes her cry. It's the weirdest thing I've ever. So, I mean, like full on bawling, can't figure out what's wrong with her crying. So.
Like immediately, because I need some of that.
Within like 20 to 30 minutes, the rush is so fast, the crash is so hard, she's hysterical. And I'm like, and it lasts for hours. And I'm like, so if we do dessert, it's before bed so that she sleeps it off by the morning.
No, that.
You guys tried sugar substitute,
And don't
or
forget to subscribe to
is
the channel.
that not any better?
Sorry, say that again. Did we try what?
Have you tried any sugar substitutes, or is none of that any better for her?
Oh no, I have very severe reactions to sugar substitutes. I had learned that in my early 20s. So aspartame, like gastrointestinal issues, headaches, like literally feel hungover. Most of the sugar substitutes make me extremely sick. Coconut sugar works like a breeze though. I do really well with that. Sorry, I keep muting you, Tanya, because
you're fine. The TV's off and she's in her room, so hopefully. But
you can always unmute yourself.
When I was first switching to the lower histamine diet, again, anything processed was a no-go. So I started using stevia, which for me helped a lot. There's also monk fruit sweetener. So I found some other things, to provide the sweetness when I'm making stuff, or, what have you. And as someone with environmental allergens, I don't know if you knew it, but for me, I think part of it was my coffee, because when coffee is processed, especially if it's ground, it naturally has a mold component to it. So what I did is I started ordering from a company that does organic coffee beans. They don't ground it, so you grind it yourself. And it's organic, so they took extra toxins out of it, and it's really good coffee. So I started, with that, which was also helpful. But yeah, as far as
link to that in the comments.
Yeah,
I know.
Sure.
I have to share that. I do just espresso with almond milk.
I will.
So much less coffee, like actual coffee. So the espresso, but I still do react, even though I'm using almond milk and I'm using coconut sugar. I still do have slight reactions in the morning. It might be my coffee. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. And then I also, where are we here? If I could find it.
I'll write it down.
Yeah, I ended up, you're fine. I'm just brain multitasking. So I also eventually, because this company has both caffeine and decaf. So what I did is I started and I ordered one of each. And so I started doing half calf. And then eventually I just switched to decaf. And now I'm, other than in chocolate, I'm completely caffeine free.
That's nice. Someday, maybe. I love my coffee.
Let's see here.
We might
So
have
I've
to
just
stop
been
talking.
introduced to fruit. So that was cool. And then the second person within 2 weeks that said that, somebody went to a doctor. I don't even remember who it was, but they said they went to, and the doctor had them hold some coffee, like a container of coffee, and they pushed down, and then they gave them organic coffee and pushed down, and it didn't go down. They're like, "Oh, you're allergic to that." They were like, really weird test, but so then he had to start doing organic coffee. Yeah, it was really
My
something in the
chiropractor just tested
toxins
like
in it,
that.
something about it affecting the body.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like any kind of mold would just be dead after it was boiled. Doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like that? I mean, obviously it's not, but like it would never occur to me.
You still want to try it.
Could just be the handling of it even beforehand, if you think about it, right? Because if you're scooping grounds and it's the air and so forth around you is all, I think Tanya
that's
throws up.
true. That's true.
So it may not even be what happens after you drink it. It might just be the preparation of touching it beforehand. Because that's the biggest problem with my mother-in-law with the pesticides. I mean, she had to feed her entire family organic fruits and vegetables because she could not prepare them. Like she couldn't touch them. And so it was a very expensive thing to figure out. But they grew most of their stuff as they were growing up. They figured out they just, their family, 4 kids. Well, Tanya, you're
I have a lot of trouble with potatoes. Oh, sorry. Any better? My ex-husband used to make fun of me because we would be preparing something with potatoes, and I mean, runny nose, sneezing nonstop. And he's like, "You just don't like to work." Then I found out I'm allergic to potatoes, so I cannot peel them because it's nonstop running nose, sneezing left. I'm so miserable. It's horrible. So yeah, I mean, potato allergies are a thing.
Yeah. I had a friend who was allergic to egg, and you would be shocked at how many things have egg in them. I mean, it didn't matter. And she was highly allergic, like anaphylactic shock kind of allergic. And everywhere we went, like every restaurant we went to, it was such a huge deal because it's not as common of an allergen as you would think. And it was her only allergy at the time. But yeah, it's in everything. They use it as, as a thickener. They use it in sauces. They use it in everything. It's in everything.
Right.
And cross-contamination in kitchens is a huge issue too.
Yeah. Like usually if someone's allergic to egg, it's like, well, if they ate 2 scrambled eggs, they might get eczema or hives. Like usually when someone's allergic to egg, like Trooper was allergic to egg white for quite some time. And we did stop giving it to him for several years, but now he eats them and he has no trouble. He outgrew it. But as long as it was just a little bit in something, it was fine. Now milk he was more allergic to that.
I think it just depends on the severity of the allergy too. I mean, I also know people with celiac disease who can't lick an envelope because there's gluten in the glue on the back of an envelope. So, you never know what you're coming in contact with.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that adhesives that they always use for, Band-Aids or surgeries or whatever, they make me miserable. I get red and raised, and it's just bad. But I was going to say as well that that's one of the reasons they tell you to read labels and read them very thoroughly. Because if you're outside of the 8 most common for allergies, then it's not listed in bold. So, where I'm having to, when I was doing the elimination, I'm also allergic to rice and so rice, potato. So trying to find something that had a flour that wasn't almond, rice, or potato is very difficult. But those aren't ones that are listed. You have to read for them. So if it's, something that's not as common, you have to be very, very careful. And then I was just going to say, like you said, I think a lot of it too has to do with the onset. If it's something pediatric, then there's the chance to outgrow it, where in my experience, when the onset's later, that's not going to happen.
Right. Well, and sometimes, like, I'll be honest with you, when I went through my whole lactose thing and figured out it was such an issue later in life, I will never forget the day I sat with my mother and she was like, you know, when you were a baby, I used to have to buy this really expensive formula because you couldn't have it with lactose in it. And I was like,
Sorry.
what? I was so upset with her that day. You have no idea. And I was like, I've been going through all this stuff. She's like, no, I remember your father used to have to drive all the way to downtown Rochester, because that's where we were from, to get this special formula from a pharmacy because you couldn't have milk. And I was like, and so when did you decide I could have milk? Because apparently now I'm in my 20s again and I can't have it anymore. Like, when did you make that decision? It was hilarious. So, you know, and it's possible I just grew more tolerant to it. And then as I got older, I mean, you have hormonal shifts and everything else. You start having reactions to things. But I was just like, the day she was telling me that story, I was like, you've got to be kidding me right now. Really? Really? So,
wow.
Yeah.
If I could share just one more thing, and then I'll, my daughter is, she's allergic to cow milk. And this comes back to what Becca was saying about if something changes and you notice any sort of pattern, it's worth looking into. She was in daycare at the time, and I noticed that for 3 or 4 weekends in a row, Saturday and Sunday, at bedtime, she was sick to her stomach. And I was like, why is this happening? It doesn't happen during the week, you know, and it's always at bedtime. So we ended up getting her tested, found out she was allergic to cow milk. And for her specifically, I think what happens is as she gets tired, her body loses the ability to process it as well, which is why it's always at bedtime. To this day, if she has macaroni and cheese and doesn't, you know, and decides, I want a little bit of ice cream, bedtime, sick to her stomach. But earlier on in the day, she doesn't react the same. But, you know, like Becca said, it was one of those things that I just suddenly noticed and was like, there's got to be something going on.
I had from a nutritionist that I was seeing, you can actually develop allergies. And I never confirmed this with my allergist. I don't know if it's really a thing. But the nutritionist has said you can develop allergies after any large illness as well. So if you go through a severe stomach bug, a severe flu, if you're hospitalized and certain foods are eliminated during your diet throughout that time, when you reintroduce things, you can start finding allergies then as well, which I was like, that's interesting. But I guess it makes sense. I mean, half the time we're not in tune enough with our bodies to even know what's happening. At least I know I'm not. I just generally don't feel well, but I always generally don't feel well. So I'm like, well, that's just how I always feel.
Well, doesn't gut health have a lot to do with allergies for a lot of people? So if your gut is healthier or less healthy for some reason, you may or may not be able to process things as well. And especially if you've been sick, like you said. Like, I had been having intestinal issues for close to 20 years, but I just wrote it off. I'd always say, oh, well, I ate too much of such and such. I didn't think of it as a big deal until finally I had a really severe issue. And I think, but I don't know for sure, that the really severe issue came from about a food poisoning. And then once I got that, that was it. Like, I couldn't come back from it, you know, where I might have been able to before. And it was, I mean, because food poisoning doesn't last a year, you know, or years. But it's that looking into it and trying to figure out. And well, Trooper with his milk thing, like, he was just sick and he was sick and he was sick and he was sick and he just kept getting sick. And I kept taking him to the doctor and they were like, try this pill, try that, try this. And nothing was helping. And finally I was like, something is wrong. Like, clearly something is wrong. Can we please do some tests? We had been there 5 or 6 times over one summer, and he had been almost like borderline hospitalized for a while because he was so sick and his fever was so high. I couldn't keep him hydrated. Then he got constipated because he was so dehydrated and because his fever and everything. And so then he was sick that way. So anyhow, then they did the allergy testing, and sure, all these things came back that he was allergic to. But if I hadn't been pushy about it, and it turned out that we had been giving him all these dairy probiotics. And the probiotics helped him with the probiotic part, but they didn't help him because he was allergic to the dairy. So now we do non-dairy or non-cow milk.
It's like all the whey protein I was sucking in for a year straight after my surgery. And I had no idea. My nutritionist had no idea. She's like, no, this should be fine. And your symptoms are normal. You just had stomach surgery. And I'm like, this ain't normal. This can't be normal. This can't be the rest of my life. But it was the way.
Well,
it comes from cow's milk.
I've come to the conclusion that if it's not killing you immediately, it's normal to them.
True.
You know, like your hormones. Oh, well, no, it's normal. This is not normal. Like, if you feel like crap constantly, it's not normal. But if they tell you, but they're like, oh, but it's within normal range. Well, to them, if you're not keeling over, it's within normal range. Like, but who wants to live like that? Nobody wants to live like that. Sorry, that was a little ranty.
Yeah. Like for me, as a kid, like I have these random things that don't make sense for a kid. Like I didn't know these things affected me negatively. I just didn't like them. Like for example, eggs I am not allergic to. However, it comes from, I don't know, it was bad wing of things. Because when I was like 3 years old, I noticed that eggs were two colors. And that did not make sense to my 3-year-old mind. I said, it's a food, it's it be two colors. There's white, there's yellow. What part am I supposed to eat? And I would not eat. And if they scrambled it without mixing it before scrambling it, it was a no. They couldn't get me to eat it. And it was like the weirdest thing. And they would try to hide it under the grit. But I stir everything with it. And I was like, you're tricking me. And it was like a big deal in my family. And so I never did the egg thing. And then, but milk, I couldn't stand the smell of it. And then cheese, I couldn't eat because it made my tongue tingle. Well, go figure, over the years, like, about it, because I can't drink whey without getting nauseous. You know,
didn't
like,
you say
I can't
cheese
put whey
gave
in
you
a
headaches?
smoothie. So
Didn't
cheese
give you
is a
headaches
trigger to
too?
migraines as well as chocolate. So my body just naturally over time started me not wanting things. So I am one of those in the world who does think for chocolate, like I enjoy chocolate, all things. And so my biggest thing was
I have
ice,
a nightstand full of it.
even then even with cream, I veered off towards sherbet. So yeah, my body just naturally decided to like the things that were not harmful to me. And so I didn't figure it out for a long time because I was avoiding them early.
If we could all be so lucky.
Probably the quarter pounder hurt me. It was double cheese.
Big Mac.
Maybe.
I made the mistake of eating a Big Mac when we were in Miami last weekend, 2 weekends ago. We took the kids to McDonald's, which I never do with my cousin. She's like, let's go eat at the park. I was like, I'm going to eat a Big Mac. I haven't had a Big Mac in years. It was the worst 24 hours of my life. And I had my grandmother's 90th birthday party, my in-laws' 45th anniversary, and I had to drive 3 hours home to Miami. Do you know how many stops I had to make? Bad decisions. See, I can still make them and not think them through well. Damn, it was a good Big Mac. They shouldn't taste that.
Well, at least it was a good one, right? At least you didn't eat something that was terrible.
You know,
and
I
still
get like the
suffer.
all-natural Thousand Island dressing by the whatchamacallit company that I order from Thrive Market, and I make my own with my fake cheese and all this stuff, and it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, if you're aware, for when you're undergoing allergy testing, I found out with the specialist I'm seeing now, for nuts, there are specific proteins they can do blood testing for. So for me, I'm allergic to all of the tree nuts, but the protein is associated with my oral allergy syndrome and not anaphylaxis. So my allergist was like, as long as you're feeling decently well, like you can go ahead and eat that, because the protein in the peanut you're allergic to, or the almond or hazelnut, isn't the one we see most common in people with anaphylaxis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have an EpiPen,
which I didn't know was a thing.
I always feel like is a big waste because they're disgustingly expensive now. But I've never had to use them.
By the way, EpiPens are, check with your doctor, of course, across the board. Even though the expiration date is a year later, they typically say it will lose some of its effectiveness, but depending on the length of time, of course, you don't have to get new ones immediately. Unless you're someone
your
who has to
doctor,
use them all
because
the
my
time.
husband's a nurse and it's the same thing. He's like, we're not paying for that again. It's still fine. I'm like,
yep.
Okay, let's give it a risk.
Yeah. I carry mine with me everywhere just in case. I've never had to use it, thankfully.
I don't know. I think we've talked a lot about all the negative things that food can do, but there's a lot of stuff that we could do as far as sourcing food and making the right decisions that can really just overall make you, let's just go with a better person, because not just feeling better, but so many foods have mood altering effects on us too. And I know we talked about it a little bit with like our kids and so forth, but I mean, you could end up in withdrawal from sugars and things like that if you're not constantly consuming them. And I'll tell you, Winter, you mentioned the smell of food. The reason why we went organic with our meat was because I couldn't stand the smell of reheated meat that had not been organic. I couldn't stand the smell of it. Or even just raw chicken that was not organic, it smelled weird to me. It was the weirdest thing when it started to happen. And I thought I was crazy. And then my husband started picking up on it as well. So when we started sourcing our food from local, or at least our meat anyway, from local farms, it was very different experience for us. And, for our family, it's worth the investment. It is more expensive. But we're supporting a local farm down the street, and I'm getting food that I feel safe eating. And I know, Becca, you've been getting goat's milk and eggs for the longest time. I know you just did your pig. We all saw that on Facebook, which was cool. I picked my pig up and it was already in pieces. Easy to cook, shrink wrapped pieces. Becca's
most
did
of
not
mine
look like
was
that.
too. Like most of it was in pieces, but she gave me she asked
gave
if
you the
I
extras.
wanted, like,
I didn't get
the head, for example. And Trooper said, I want to see the head. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll do next time. I don't know if it was worth it to cook something for 10 hours for 1.5 pounds of meat.
It's a lot of work.
Instant
It was
pot.
really good. It was really good. It was just sitting in the oven. I didn't actually handle it. But yeah, my goat lady, as we call her.
Which I never got some of your
That's where
kefir
we
the
get.
other day. I realized it when we got home.
I still have a bunch of your stuff that I need to give you. But yes.
Oh, my chicken poop tarp. I was looking for it when I had to move the chickens back inside. Sorry. Totally off topic.
But anyway, yes, I really like getting milk from her and eggs because I know where it's coming from and I know how she handles her animals, and it's fresh from the day before. And in my refrigerator, I can keep it a week and it's still great. And then it seems like a day or two after that, it starts to not be great. So I turn it into, as you call it down here, kefir. And that lasts a lot longer. And then I bought a pig locally, and there's a place that does cows locally. It's not organic, but it is fresher, and they're happy. It's the stress level. That was what I was concerned about a lot, was for animals, the stress level of the animals, because something that we deal with a lot is stress and anxiety. And I feel like I don't want to eat stress and anxiety. And I don't know if anyone has proven that there's a connection between that and stress levels, but I have talked to people anecdotally who stopped eating it and felt like they could see a difference between eating it and not eating it. and how they felt, their mood. And I don't eat enough that I could tell you myself either. Like, I just don't eat enough of it to know the difference. But anyway, that was something that became more and more important to me. So that's what we do.
I can tell you as a truck driver that I'm going down the highway. You can see the difference, the healthy cows and the not healthy cows, and the ones who are grazing the pastures, and you know they're eventually going to be food. I, as a vegan, am like, okay, you're having your life, you're living your life, go do your do. You're not going to know when it happens. It's going to be okay. You're going to be happy. Then you go to these and you're like driving right on the highway, and there's nothing but dirt and mar, and their heads are stuck in the little cages, and you just know there's no way that anything good can come from an animal who's been miserable their whole life.
Or even the last 6 weeks, right?
Compassion or
They send them to
joy
those feedlots. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
If I have to buy meat for my family, I go to buy the free range, antibiotic free, everything that I can find that shows that they might have had a happy, maybe good life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when they're in those
actually
places,
go pet the cows that end up on our table. So, I mean, for me, that is a big part of it. I love supporting a local farm, a local family. That's huge to me. But being able to just go there anytime I want and literally seeing the next, handful that, I mean, they live a good life. They live a good life. And so I don't know. This is going to sound so stupid. But like when I go dig into my deep freezer and pull out a steak that's got their local farm logo on it, I just feel good because I know how they handle their animals. Like Becca was saying, I know how they handle their animals. That's really what it comes down to. I know that they were taken well care of. And so for me, that's, that's going to be really important, more so than before. I mean, I don't have a problem eating at a restaurant or something, what I would serve at home, but majority of my meals, 3 meals a day times 7 days a week, if a majority of my meals are food that I'm sourcing from places that I feel comfortable with, I feel better. Which is probably a lot of the reason why I have way too many chickens right now.
But fewer every day. Oh, she froze right then. She's having chicken trouble. So one thing I want to bring up, not to tell people what to do, but when I was looking into it, it turns out that turkey is one of the very worst things. And you think of it, they show it like it's such a healthy meat, but it's almost impossible to keep turkeys alive without boatloads of antibiotics because they just die all the time. And so if you buy turkey, like sandwich, like turkey anything, it's bad. Like it just really is bad unless you get the free range organic, which is like $6 a pound or something crazy. Sometimes it's cheaper around, like on Thanksgiving, for Thanksgiving this year, the boys convinced me to buy a turkey, even though I had sworn off turkeys. And, but I got one at Publix. They had them. They weren't that expensive. They weren't super, super expensive. Like no antibiotics ever. We lost them both.
Oh, and we're done.
It's just flashing.
And they're
everywhere.
both back.
But they were ones like no antibiotics ever. And I figured, well, if they've never had antibiotics, then they were not raised in the little crate with all the other turkeys. Like they have to spread them out more because they can't keep them healthy. They can't keep them healthy without antibiotics unless they actually keep them out where they have room and they can breathe. And like you were saying, like when you go to buy something, hello, welcome back.
I was on my hotspot and my cell phone died. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no.
Wasn't paying attention to that one at all. What happened to Tanya? Is she still here?
She disappeared like right after you did. I don't know.
Disappeared right after you.
Maybe she'll sign back in.
I just went on a little thing about how turkey is really bad. Full of antibiotics.
How turkeys are what?
full of antibiotics, and like
Yeah.
they're the worst meat for you, possibly with the exception of pork, because the way they're raised, it's just so full.
So was
It's
it
so
last
bad
year,
that
the year
they're full of
before?
antibiotics.
I think it was the year before we got an organic farm raised, bought from a farm turkey for Thanksgiving. My sister-in-law bought it. It was so disgustingly expensive. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it
I ain't
is.
eating turkey for Thanksgiving anymore. If this is what it's going to cost, we're not doing it. I mean, well over $100 for one turkey to feed the family. It was awful because they do need so much stuff because they're so susceptible to disease that
Yeah.
it's just so hard.
Right. They lose so many of them to not get
Mhm.
them. But Publix had some that were no antibiotics. I'm sure
Did
that's what
they?
it was. And it was still like $3 or $4 a pound, if I remember right. But it was a lot cheaper than like a local, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they went to
And I
like a
was like,
local farm
okay,
and picked
I
out their
can,
turkey kind of thing.
I said, I can compromise on this. Like I can handle it. I know it's not the best. It's not out in a field wandering, but it can't be too bad if it didn't have antibiotics, because they couldn't have kept it alive, you know, if
Right.
it was too bad. And it was a good turkey. I cut the whole thing up before I cooked it because it was huge. And we ate turkey up until like a couple months ago, every once in a
Was that
while.
the turkey you grilled? Did you grill a turkey? Were you the
I
one who
did
grilled
grill
the
it.
turkey?
I grilled part of a turkey. Yeah. That
Yeah.
was just like basically the carcass after I cut the breast and the legs and the thighs and like all the things I cut in pieces. And I seasoned it and I froze it in different. Anyway, it worked out really well. And I'll probably do it
Yeah.
again if I get the chance. I had planned on not doing turkey because, well, part of all that work for Thanksgiving is people being glad that you did all that work for Thanksgiving. And 2 years ago, no one cared and wanted to come to the table. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. And so the next year, we didn't have turkey and Thanksgiving dinner.
I have a friend who did that. Was it Thanksgiving or was it Christmas? I can't remember. She had a house full of people and no one was listening to her and her food was getting cold and she was frustrated as could be. And she was like, the next holiday rolled around and she did nothing. She's like, oh, you can come over, but I'm not cooking.
Yeah, like
Maybe it was
why am I
Thanksgiving.
doing this for you?
Uh-huh. Because it must have been Thanksgiving because it was Christmas that she was like, come on over, but I'm not doing anything for you guys again. In fact, she was so annoyed. She went to her neighbor's house, who's like her best friend, and went and sat by her pool while everyone else was doing whatever they wanted to do in her house. She was like, I'm leaving.
I need to meet this person. We could be friends.
Oh, you could. You could. But food is a very big social thing too. I know we are at an hour, but this is just too much fun of a topic. I mean, food itself is a huge social aspect for so many cultures.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm Italian. Being brought up, what you eat, where you eat, sitting around the table is a humongous part of just growing as a family, having those traditions. So, you know, it goes beyond just what you eat. It's the process of making it together and passing down recipes and sitting around a table and sharing stories. And I think I'm going to get teary-eyed because like that's my favorite part of food.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
agree. I've really missed that for the last year plus.
yeah, come on over. You can bake cookies with me at Christmas.
That sounds
I don't
like
have
fun.
much family here.
Christmas
My
is a
family's
long
all
time
north.
from now.
But now my Christmas, well, you know why I'm bringing this up is because I was just in Miami. We're going back to stay with my cousin for
You're
the week.
away.
And she was like, we're cooking, we're baking and over while you're here for the week. I want to learn all the recipes. I said, okay, what are we going to bake? She's like, your cookies. I'm like, Maria, those are Christmas cookies. I'm not baking Christmas cookies in July. She's like, oh yeah, we are. We're baking Christmas cookies in July. So I guess it doesn't matter what time of year you make them. But I'll be making Italian Christmas cookies in Miami the first week of July if anybody wants them.
Sounds good to me.
I
can eat wheat.
don't think I can have them.
Probably not. I'm not. I shouldn't even them.
Probably have
long as
The
you
only
don't
ones I
and
can eat,
eggs in
technically
them,
the
right?
only one I could eat is the almond
No
cake.
eggs, butter.
Yeah, there's eggs. Oh, girl, there's Crisco in some of these things. These recipes are so old. Like, I mean, you eat enough of them, you'll literally just keel over at the table. It's that bad. Becca's seen them. You've seen some of them. You've probably even eaten them.
I've eaten them.
They
You think I
taste
came to your house
amazing.
and didn't eat your cookies?
I don't know. No, you definitely ate my cookies. You're my dessert girl.
That's right. Multiple desserts a day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we could have another week where we talk about other aspects of food besides like the dangers of or being careful about foods, but just talking about the value of
The traditions of food,
eating together and going out together and yeah.
bonding experience. Girls' night out.
And ice creams for vegans.
Yeah.
Hey, I
Yeah,
gotta say, there's some pretty
sure.
good vegan and vegetarian ice cream, non-dairy ice cream options that are out there. They've really upped their game over the last couple of years because that's all I can have now too. But no, absolutely. Let's add that to our list. I'd love to talk about the traditions of food or cultures in food or anything around that because that is such a huge part about the benefits of it, the healing aspect of it. I mean, we haven't seen our family in a year.
Yeah.
And went to Miami and spent 2 days straight just sitting around tables and eating with people. And I came back. I mean, it was so stressful because like especially we took the kids there and all the chaos. But like I came back and I was like, I felt like me again. You know, just cooking for that many people and entertaining and sitting around and talking to people. I mean, yeah, it was great to see my family, but it was the process of all of it that I loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just something when you're standing in a kitchen with, you know, 3 or 4 of your female cousins and you've got a grandmother and a couple great aunts in there and you're all like cooking and getting ready for a party. And like, there's just something to that
I love it.
Luckily, I'm blessed that my husband's family is very much like my family from up north in that manner. So I still get that with them. But that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Love kitchens.
Next week, joy to food.
Oh, we don't even have a next week topic, do we? What are we talking about?
We can talk about that next week.
Should we talk about food? All right, let's do it.
Continuing it.
The joys of food.
Yes, because this week was kind of like the non-joys of food.
That's true. Well, this will be a 2-parter.
Yeah. All the positives next week.
I think that's a good idea. I feel bad we lost Tanya. I feel bad we didn't even introduce Tanya. Tanya is another one of our fabulous crazy writer chicks who saw our event and was like, hey, is this worth checking out if you're on a limited diet, right? And we were like, come on over, let's talk about it. Because that's what we do. So anytime you see an event that seems to interest you and you want to join in, let us know because we like having random people share opinions other than just us because Lord knows talk too much.
I think it's a fun idea to have people, if we're talking about some topic, you know, if they have something to say about it. It doesn't have to, I think people could think, well, I'm not an expert, but like we do bring on experts, right? Like we do bring on experts, but you don't have to.
We do for some things. I was trying to get rid of our random box, but I can't.
Just sharing opinions over here.
Yeah, that's it. And that's really what it was about too, is sharing stories and experiences, I think. I mean, we've said it 19 times. If you get sick, if you do something we said and you get sick, don't do it. Although I will say I'm not certain that nut cycling works for fertility. So throw that one out there. Yeah, find a professional and then take what they say with a grain of salt because you know your body the best. If I can tell anyone any advice, if anybody would care, I would say that would be my biggest thing that I tell people when they're like, well, how did you figure it out? Well, I stopped listening to what everybody else told me was supposed to happen when I ate something or did something. And then I just listened to what was actually happening.
Yep. That's what with Trooper, we had several things like that where people, they would say, oh, well, no, he can't be lactose intolerant, for example. He's too young. Okay, well, guess what? When we stopped giving him lactose, it made a world of difference. Yeah, it turned out he was also allergic. Like he's both, but
yeah,
that came later, I think. So
probably.
Anyway, yeah, it's late.
It is late. My phone's dead. My husband called. That's what actually cut my phone. So who knows what he's thinking right now.
Yeah.
I should probably plug it in and call him back.
You didn't plug it in yet?
No, I plugged into my router because you guys were more important than my phone. It's still sitting here. I'll go figure
For all
out.
of you who want to see the troublemaker that kept making me get up from this show. Say hi.
He's adorable.
Bye.
All right, now walk away.
She's like, now go. My kids are sound asleep.
All right, guys.
And honestly, if they're not, I couldn't
good.
hear them with this
It was
on
good
anyway.
night.
So
Yeah. Good night. It's been fun.
it has. Eventually, someday we'll get this up on YouTube. Next week, the joys of food. We're gonna keep talking about
Very
food.
nice.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.